What's up, football heads? Welcome back to that show. As always, I am your host, Kyle McQueen, back with part two, recapping the Week 10 games here in Week 11 on a glorious Let Me Talk to You Tuesday. Let's get into it.
Let me talk to you.
Let's start with, you know what? Let me start with some news. Let's mix it up a little bit because there's a little bit of news here today. First off, the Bears talked yesterday about how just a dumpster fire. We talked last week on the pick show with Caesar about how this is a game, your season sort of teetering on the brink. You get a win here, you get back on track. Again, a game you should win, a home game against the Patriots. You get back on track. Bygones be bygones. All the Tyreek Stevenson stuff, the DJ Moore stuff is in the past. We're 5-4. We're moving forward. We still got all our divisional games left. Still got a chance, maybe not to get back in the divisional hunt because I mean, the Vikings 7-2, Packers 6-3, and they probably ain't gonna catch Detroit. They got a chance, but they're probably not gonna catch them. So the Bears, even at 5-4, probably not gonna happen. But get yourself in the wild card race. The 49ers are 5-4. The Rams fall back 4-5. So they win that game, they're still firmly in the mix with a lot of games left to prove themselves against good teams, to prove themselves against great teams, contenders. And if they lose to a bad Patriots team, a 2-win coming into the game Patriots team at home, the season was on the brink against the Patriots. Even at 4-5, you're not really out of it. If you're 4-5 in the AFC, you're in the playoffs right now. But NFC is a different beast this season, and the Bears, they're 4-5, but it's rough, man. It's been a rough few weeks for the Bears, and then today they fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, who's supposed to be this big hire. He was, I don't want to say the mastermind, but he was the OC, the quarterback whisperer of sorts with Seattle for the Geno Smith renaissance. There was a lot of, I don't want to say ballyhoo behind the Shane Waldron hiring, but that felt like it was most of the talk. My talk, at least, was, if things go well with Caleb Williams as a rookie, then Shane Waldron is going to get hired to be a coach somewhere, and you're going to lose him and have to restart again the next season or 2 seasons from now with a new OC, new play caller for Caleb Williams. But went the opposite way. He gets fired 9 games into his first season, calling plays for the Bears. And Thomas Brown, the Bears' offensive passing game coordinator, is being promoted to OC. It's rough. If you stayed status quo, I guess I talked yesterday about when I feel like it's justified to fire a coach in the middle of the season. And the 2 cases were you need a spark because you feel like this is a really good team that has the pieces in place and they're just not playing up to par or whatever. You feel like you're a playoff team. You feel like you should be and could be a contender. So you do something to shake things up in the first, 5-6 weeks of the season. And the other side is the Urban Meyer, just Bobby Petrino. It's an irredeemable dumpster fire that's bringing disrepute on the organization. So it's we got to get this guy out of here because it's bad beyond football. And the Bears situation to me falls in the middle. Like I said, they probably should have fired Eberflus after last year. They're in this cycle. Goes back to John Fox. John Fox, 2 bad years, had a 3-13 year, I think his second year. Then they're all right, we're going to stick with you one more year, draft Mitch Trubisky, and you get one last shot, see what you can do with this rookie quarterback. That fizzles out. He gets fired after 1 year. They bring in Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy, 2 bad years with Mitch Trubisky. Although I think they made the playoffs in his first year, if I'm not mistaken. And Nagy's first year, not Trubisky. And then a bad year. They decide, all right, Trubisky's not the guy. We're going to move off of Trubisky. We're going to draft Justin Fields and Nagy. You get 1 year. 1 year to prove that you could do it with this guy. Has one bad year. He gets fired. They bring in Eberflus, 2 years with Justin Fields. They decide Justin Fields isn't the guy. We got the number 1 overall pick. Caleb Williams is sitting there. We're going to draft Caleb Williams. But Eberflus, you're going to get 1 year with Caleb Williams to prove that you're the guy. And the way it's trending, he's as of right now, I think most people would say, yeah, Eberflus is going to get fired after you. So the Bears need to get off this carousel. I said it before the season. Just if you're even thinking about it and you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, especially if you're going to draft a quarterback first overall that's being declared a generational talent, like just rip the Band-Aid off, hire an offensive mind to be your coach so you know he's not going to get hired out if Caleb is having all this success and you know the OC's getting all this credit. Like he's your coach. He's not going to leave to go coach somewhere else. So that they're tied together. They didn't do that. And now here they fire Shane Waldron. I certainly don't think it's all on Shane Waldron, the way that they've been playing. You know, DJ Moore saying, you know, he can't say that Eberflus hasn't lost the locker room. So like there's a lot more going on here than just Shane Waldron. But Shane Waldron and the offense he was calling, like the run game is atrocious. There's not a lot of like variety. There's not a lot of spice or eye candy to the run game. And in the modern NFL, like that's like Mike McDaniel, what he was doing with San Francisco years ago, and that getting him the Miami Dolphins job. What Shanahan does, what McVay has done, and McVay switching up his run scheme going into last year just based on personnel. Like that's the way the league is. There's just not a lot of just straight. And even back in the day when there was more teams running power. But there was less like eye candy, less things just moving around that don't really impact the play, but it's masking things or making things confusing for the defense. Even then, like they'd run a more complex run game than the Bears do. And this is coming from the O-line committee. This is coming from Alex Boone, Jeremiah Searles, guys that played multiple years in the league. In Alex Boone's case, a Pro Bowl player, played in a Super Bowl. And the pass game obviously isn't working. You know, Caleb is struggling. They got a lot of long developing plays, long developing routes. Caleb Williams, their offensive line is not good enough. Caleb Williams is getting sacked. He got sacked 9 times against the Patriots, I believe. He's racking them up. He's on one of those all-time paces for sacks as a rookie. I saw a graphic on Instagram yesterday comparing his stats to Bryce Young's stats in their first 9 games. And the thing that stuck out the most, because like you could look at completion percentage and yards and other things, and there's reasons for that. But they both Bryce took and Caleb is taking a ton of sacks, and that's just, I don't care how you slice it, that's not good for a rookie quarterback. I've talked for weeks, for months about limiting the amount of pass plays. Not like severely. I mean, we'll get to the Chargers-Titans game, and like I think everyone likes Justin Herbert at the very least as like a damn good, talented quarterback, and he only threw I think like 17 passes, and we'll get to that. But like you don't need to be throwing the ball 15 times a game, but you shouldn't be putting a rookie quarterback out here throwing the ball 40 to 50 times a game. So all of that does fall on Shane Waldron, and if the organization is not going to fire Matt Eberflus right now in the middle of the season, like if you're going to fire him, this probably would have been the week to fire him. Now, granted, they come out next week or whenever their next game is and get blown out by 40 points, then like all bets are off. But it seems like they're going to stick with him through the end of the season, and you feel like something's got to change. It's clear it's the offense that's the problem. We know this. Like the defense, I say it every week, they're a really good defense. They're an elite caliber defense. They have the potential to be a championship caliber defense. They got a lot of pieces. They got pieces on every level, but the offense ain't getting it done. So you fire Shane Waldron, see what Thomas Brown can do. We saw this pay dividends for the Bills last year when they moved on fired their OC. They go on a run to end the season. Now, the Bills, obviously a much more talented team. Josh Allen, an established Pro Bowl MVP caliber quarterback, a top, at any given time, 4-3, top 2 quarterback in the league. And you got Diggs, you got pieces. They've been to the championship game. They got the experience. You got leaders on the defensive side as well for them last year. So I'm not expecting the Bears to switch OCs and go on a Bills-like run like they did last year, which I predicted, by the way. But it wasn't on the tape, so I don't expect you to believe me because all my predictions so far this season have been atrocious. But shouts out to Tennessee Titans. So I'm not expecting this to be this massive fix, and now the Bears are right back where they need to be. But you never know. You tweak a few things. If Thomas Brown can get the run game going, if he decides, listen, we don't need to be throwing the ball 35, 45 times a game. Let's throw it 25 to 28 times to, 28 to 35 runs. Add a little spice into the run game. Like, we've seen their running backs have success before, so it's not like they just got bums back there, like just complete slappies. So if you can make that work, maybe all you need is a game where the offense is clicking, you scored 26 points, and the defense responds well to it because they're not on the field the whole game, and maybe you win the time of possession 35 minutes, 25 minutes. The defense is rested. They play a good game, hold the other team to 12 points. You win 26 to 12. It feels like, okay, like this is what we're capable of. And winning is a balm that soothes all of these wounds. Any weird locker room shit, any organizational shit that's just been slipping and sliding the last few weeks, whether it's response to the Tyreek Stevenson thing or whatever's going on with DJ Moore, it can kind of alleviate that a little bit. And, maybe they can finish strong to end the season and feel good about themselves moving into next year. But it's definitely not all on Shane Waldron. Like, it does feel like there's some other things going behind the scenes. And if those things are so far down the road that winning a couple games with a new OC can't alleviate that, then they got bigger problems. And then maybe they should have fired Eberflus. I don't know. But Shane Waldron is out. Thomas Brown is in. Someone else who is out, Dak Prescott, officially scheduled to undergo season-ending surgery on his hamstring. They said the hamstring was at least partially torn off the bone. So Dak's going to be out for the year, which means you're going to get Cooper Rush or you're going to get Trey Lance. They both got some time in the Eagles game that we'll get to, which was a disaster on all fronts for the Dallas Cowboys. But Dak being down, at least now like there's no faint hope. I don't think Cowboys fans really had any hope, even if Dak was coming back. Even if he's only going to miss 2 games, I don't think there was any hope left, really, at least among the fan base. But it is what it is. I mean, you paid the guy $60 million, and now he's got season-ending surgery. So it's just bad news racking up for the Dallas Cowboys in a lost season. You got to think Mike McCarthy is finally going to get fired. If Jerry Jones sticks with Big Mike again, then, I mean, Cowboys fans are going to lose their minds. And for Jerry, my friend Adam has long said it's not that Jerry doesn't care about winning. It's that he cares about the brand of the Cowboys and that the Cowboys are always the topic of conversation first and foremost. So if they keep Big Mike, like, you're going to have Cowboys fans loud about, I'm not watching the team this year. Now, of course, they're going to fucking watch. We all do this. I ain't watching the team this year. And then you watch every game. And technically, that is the Cowboys, top story. People say they're in the news. People are talking about it. But I think that might skew a little bit towards the one bit of, like, this is bad publicity. Normally for Jerry, any publicity is good publicity. But if you got your diehard fans threatening to not watch games because you're retaining this coach, I think Jerry is smart enough to know Big Mike, it ain't going to happen. I said it when they hired him. He ain't the guy. He has proven he's not the guy. They'll move on. I know Adam is all about Ben Johnson. I think that makes a lot of sense. You see what he did with Jared Goff, who's sort of a somewhere in the middle, in the sense that like he's not a top 4 quarterback. Now he's playing at an MVP rate. I'm not saying that he's not. Jared Goff certainly in conversation. It's like him, Lamar, Josh Allen. I feel like you got to talk about his legit MVP candidates. Possibly Derrick Henry. I mean, we might need to speak more on Derrick Henry here, but I do think that it's like Dak, Goff, Kirk. Like you saw how good Kirk could be with Kevin O'Connell in his ear. You see how good Jared Goff can be with Ben Johnson this year. So you think Dak for all the ups and downs, and like we've seen him put up monster seasons with monster stats, but he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs. And granted, Jared Goff was a guy who quarterbacked a team to a Super Bowl before he got to Detroit. Something Kirk has not done, Dak has not done. But Ben Johnson, the creative mind, I think that would be a good fit. But we'll see where that goes. Some other notes: the suddenly red hot 3-7 Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen has been activated off of IR. That's going to be a good get back for them. Obviously, they traded Deontay Johnson, traded Jonathan Mingo. You get Thielen back. These 2 years with Bryce Young, Thielen has been his guy. Like he put up a 1,000-yard year last year. So getting Thielen back certainly can't hurt. Definitely going to help the surging Carolina Panthers. Let's see if there's any other news in here worth chatting about before we get into these afternoon games from Sunday, the primetime games, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. Joe Shane, Giants GM, said a determination about Daniel Jones and his status will be a football decision and not a contract decision. Sometime in the next few weeks, you get to the point in the contract. This is kind of what happened with Russ in Denver, the whole thing where it was like, we're going to bench you and it's football reasons, but then it comes out like, if he plays, past this point, his contract becomes fully guaranteed for injury. So if he does play and he gets injured, now you got to pay all of that. So we're coming up on that with Daniel Jones. So there's talk that they're going to yank him because they don't want him to get hurt. A guy with an injury history who does run around a lot, so he's open to hits more. We don't want him to get hurt, and then we got to pay this whole damn thing, and then we can't as easily get out of the contract after this year. So, I mean, in this case, is Joe Shane lying? Is he fudging the truth of it's a football decision, not a contract decision? Maybe, but either way, you weigh them both out, and it's like if you're looking just at the contract, yeah, bench him. If you're looking just at football, where you're at, yeah, bench him. You look at them both, weigh them together, whatever ratio you want to weigh them at, bench him. He's not playing good. You're not going anywhere this season. You got nothing going on. You know you're going to move off of him after the season. You're not going to continue paying him an exorbitant amount of money to be a not good quarterback. So, you got Drew Lock. Drew Lock started a bunch of games in this league, won games in relief of Geno last year. So, you feel at the least pretty solid that you're not marching Tim Boyle out there, right? Drew Lock is a capable backup quarterback, and you still got Tommy Cutlets. So maybe you put him back in there. He steals a game, something not that you want him to steal a game because you probably like to be first in line to draft the quarterback of your choice, but at the very least, Tommy Cutlets gets in, he makes some plays, Giants fans feel good about it, and blah, 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 and then they're not just fully focused on how terrible the team is and how awful their quarterback play has been. So I think Jones is done. I think he's taking his last snaps as a New York Football Giant of New Jersey. Yeah, that looks like it's about it. So let's get back into the recap of games from this past Sunday. Went through all the 1 o'clock games in part 1 yesterday on Monday, but now here on a Let Me Talk to You Tuesday, we're going to hit these 3 afternoon games. Not a great slate. 3 games, kind of just all drubbings to some degree. I mean, you look at the score of the Chargers game, and it's a 10-point game. The Chargers have full control of the whole game, from what I saw. And then the 2 primetime games, two close games came down to the end-ish. Detroit and Houston, and Miami and the Rams on Monday Night Football. But I'm going to start with the Titans and the Chargers because I watched virtually none of this game. Just because I felt like, man, the Chargers are going to handle business. Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers, they're moving, they're clicking, they're winning games, they're playing really good defense, they're running the ball really well. Justin Herbert, they're not asking him to throw it 45 times a game, but he's still Justin Herbert, super talented guy. Quentin Johnston's been catching some balls, making some big plays. Ladd McConkey's looked really good in his rookie year. And they handled business. They handled business at home. 13-7 lead at halftime. Nothing crazy, but then they're up 20-10 after 3. Touchdown apiece in the fourth quarter. You win 27-17. Like I said, every time I looked at the score, it felt like the Chargers had the game in hand. They had the ball. They had a lead. It's the Titans. They're on the road. Then you look at the stats, and again, you can look at counting stats without the context. Kind of, I don't want to say it's meaningless, but it can be misleading, and you don't know if it's misleading or if it's just accurate. But Will Levis, 18 for 23, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Not bad. He did have a fumble, but they didn't lose it. So no turnovers for Will, 2 touchdowns, only 175 yards passing, only 23 pass attempts, but 18 for 23. I look at this, and they had Tyjae Spears had 7 carries for 47 yards, 6.7 average. Tony Pollard 9 for 44, 4.89 average. So it seemed like they were running the ball pretty effectively. Will Levis 5 for 41, 8.2. But you take out the Will Levis scrambles, and maybe a couple of those were design runs. I'm not entirely sure, but between Pollard and Spears, you only got 16 carries and only 23 pass attempts for Will Levis. So they just did not run a lot of plays. And what's even more interesting is you look at the time of possession, and the Chargers only beat them out by about 2 minutes. They had the ball for 30 minutes and 59 seconds to the Titans 29 minutes and 1 second. So somehow in 29 minutes, they only ran, what is this, 23, 16, that's 39, 44 plays in 29 minutes. That's odd. But it seemed like they, at least according to the numbers, they were running the ball with some level of effectiveness. Now, granted, they could have been getting stuffed all game, and then each Spears and Pollard maybe had one 25-yard run, and you're like, oh, well, that's the only good run they had, and it skews the average. Because again, I don't know. I did not watch hardly any of this game, but interesting tale of the stats here. You look at the Chargers. Justin Herbert only threw, 17 earlier. He only threw 18 passes, 14 for 18, buck 64, 1 touchdown, no interception, no fumbles. So just a pedestrian game for Herbert. Not really asked to do much, but what he was asked to do, he did it right, did it well. But they ran the shit out of the rock. Gus Edwards, 10 carries, 55 yards, 5.5 average. J.K. Dobbins, 15 carries, 50 yards, 3.3 average. Justin Herbert had 9 runs for 32 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Darius Davis had a carry for 6 yards. Hassan Haskins had 2 for 4. Jalen Reagor had 2 for -1. But, not blowing the doors off. Like Gus Edwards had a 5.5 average, but everyone else was pretty mediocre, honestly. But stick with the run. Again, if you're averaging 3.34 yards a carry, not considered great, right? You want to be up over 4, and if you're at 5, then it's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, you're having a great game. But even at 3.34 yards a carry, if you run the ball 3 straight times and maintain that average, you're going to get a first down. So again, sticking, between Edwards and Dobbins, that's 25 rushes, and Spears and Pollard, they only had 16. So I say it all the time, run the ball. I'm not saying that's why the Chargers won. I don't know. But whatever was going to come down to Herbert, the run game, the defense, special teams, whatever. Like Chargers were going to win this game. So they're 6-3. They're moving right along. I feel like they're flying a little bit under the radar. The AFC not really stacked in the middle. Like there is no good reason the Chargers should not feel like, yeah, we're pretty much locked in to a wild card. Like they're going to have to collapse pretty hard to not get into the wild card, because like, you're looking at who's the 7th wild card spot right now in the AFC. I feel like it might be the Bengals or the Colts. Oh, the Broncos. Yeah. So there's a pretty good wall there. You're 6-3. You're 2.5 up on the Colts and the Bengals right now. 3 up on the Dolphins. So I think if you're the Chargers, you're feeling pretty good. You got good momentum going. You know, nobody's like, it's not like all eyes are on you. Like, oh, watch out for the Chargers, and you know how some teams get, and then that's when they slip up. Not that I think Jim Harbaugh would allow that to happen to his team, but again, first year with Harbaugh, talked about it in the offseason. He comes in, he turns things around quick. You're coming off a true bozo head coach in Brandon Staley, getting to a true great head coach, just coming off a national title, took the Niners to the Super Bowl over a decade ago. Jim Harbaugh, the right guy for the job. They're 6-3, cruising, just absolutely cruising. Um, Remember when I picked the Jets and there was the conversation about, are the Jets back? Have they figured it out? Have they started to gel? Have they started to come together? Is this like, you know, Aaron Rodgers saying, you know, I've been on Packers teams like this before where you start bad and then you win a game and you start to figure it out and then you get on a hot streak? Or are they just going to be back and forth all season? Well, if they were 4th last week, they are back this week, back to being absolute trash. 31-6. The Cardinals moved to 6-4. They're in a really good spot right now. I mean, the division's gonna be tough. Division's certainly gonna be tough because you got the Niners are at 5-4, nipping on their heels. The Rams did lose, so that helps. They're down to 4-5. Seahawks are 4-5. But again, I mean, you're looking at a 6-4 team, a 5-4 team, and 2 4-5 teams. So there's the Cardinals are out in front, but they're only a game and a half up on the 3rd and 4th place team. So it's still tight, but they're ascending. The Rams now take a step down. Seahawks are what appears to be crashing and burning pretty hard after a 3-0 start. Now 1-5 in their last 6 games. Niners on the way up, but it's still like, you know, is this just a team that, like the Chiefs, like they're not blowing people out, but they've been there before, they have the experience, they know how to win? Or is this going to be a situation where there's weird little cracks beneath the surface? Debo, you know, he didn't, as Jim Cornette would say, he goozled the long snapper. You know, the Ayuk injury. McCaffrey's back though. Pearsall had his first touchdown. We went through the stats in part 1. So either way, you like to think whether the Niners are truly going to be contenders this year by the end or not. They're ascending, but Cardinals surging right now. 2 weeks in a row, beat the dog shit out of a team. And granted, you know, both games, you look at the schedule, you're at home, you look at the opponent's record and say they should win this game. But again, you're playing teams that aren't as good as you. You're playing teams that haven't won a lot of games. You handle business. And the Cardinals last couple weeks have handled business, blown teams out. Offense looks great. Defense looks great. 31-6. I mean, you got to like where the Cardinals are at right now. They're playing good ball. Kyler Murray, 22 for 24, 266 and a touchdown. They ran the rock. Trey Benson, 10 carries for 62 yards. James Conner, 12 for only 33, but a touchdown. DeMercado, 3 for 22. Murray, 3 for 21. DJ Dallas, 3 for 10. So they stayed on it, ran the ball, ran the ball more than they threw it. Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 grabs, 54 yards and a touchdown. Had a pretty nice touchdown in there. Versus the Jets, once again, and this is a pattern with Aaron Rodgers teams going back, but when you're talking about peak Aaron Rodgers, you get away with it. But 22 for 35, which isn't terrible, but only 151 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But they only ran the ball 17 times. You ran the ball less than half as many times as you passed. Now, granted, you're getting blown out, so it is what it is. But Breece Hall, 10 for 52, 5.2 average. Braylon Allen, 7 for 27. And then Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams combined for 11 catches, but only 72 yards. Devontae Adams targeted 13 times, but only 6 catches. And other than those two and Breece Hall catching 4 passes for 31 out of the backfield, nobody really doing much of anything. A bunch of guys with 1 catch: Isaiah Davis, Tyler Conklin, Braylon Allen, Malachi Corley. But just bad, man. Just especially because they got a field goal on their first drive, so they were down 7-3 because they gave up a touchdown. But the Cardinals come out touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, punt. They punted once after they scored all their points, and then they just kneeled on it at the end. But you look at the Jets drives, field goal. So at that point, you're down 14-6. It's a one possession game, but then you give up the third touchdown, then you punt, then you fumble, then you punt, then a turnover on downs. So the Jets, man, even if they bounce back next week, and like I said last week, did they figure some things out and they're ascending, or are they going to be a back and forth team? Even if they're a back and forth team, they're done. They're done. Like, unless somehow they reel off wins the rest of the season, which I just don't see happening. Like, if they were going to get hot, they would have got hot off the Texans win on a Thursday. You get 10 days to prep for the Cardinals game. You had extra days to prep for this game, and you got blown out this bad. So the Jets are the Jets, and the Jets apparently will continue to be the Jets no matter how talented the roster, no matter who's at quarterback, no matter who's coaching, no matter how many days they got to prep. Jets gonna jet, and maybe 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, maybe it's just there's not enough left in the tank to get it done. And maybe his leadership style works when he's as damn good as he was, but when he's not quite as good as he used to be, maybe it rubs people the wrong way a little bit more. You can forgive some things. When you're winning games and you're contending for championships, and a guy is sort of like quirky in how he goes about his business any one way. Like Russell Wilson, when they're winning all these games in Seattle, nobody's saying shit. And then as soon as they start losing games, now he's weird. Now he's phony. He's flaky. Oh, he wants his own office. So I don't know. But the Jets are dead. Cowboys also dead. Still dead. Declared them dead, I believe last week, might have been 2 weeks ago. But they continue to be extra dead. They've ascended to a new level of dead. If you watched any of this game, this is the game I had on the main TV. And it was like every time you turn around, Dallas has the ball. They're doing a little something. Maybe they're crossing the 50. Maybe they're in the red zone. And the ball would just fly out and go. Like the Zeke Elliott going into the end zone, gets the carry, and the ball, it's like it touched him and it just shot out of his hands right into an Eagles player's hands. It's like every time you turned around, Dallas was turning the ball over in like just the goofiest ways possible. I mean, Cooper Rush lost 2 fumbles. Zeke Elliott lost a fumble. Jake Ferguson lost a fumble. And then Trey Lance came in, went 4 for 6 for 21 yards and threw an interception. So that's 5 turnovers? Awful. Just awful. I'm not going to take anything away from the Eagles. The Eagles have been playing excellent ball. Like I said, when we were talking about the Cardinals game, when you're playing a bad team and you're expected to beat that bad team, beat them into the dirt. Don't leave anything up to the imagination. Just beat them into the dirt. No questions asked. Now, my whole thing with the Eagles now for a few weeks has been, other than blowing out the Bengals, the 4-6 Bengals, what's their signature win? Where do you look on the schedule and say, like, okay, the Eagles are competing with top contenders? They're sort of just you can only play the games on the schedule, and they're back to beating the dog shit out of bad teams. But this Thursday going to be an interesting test. I believe they host the Commanders. They've taken control of the East at 7-2. The Commanders fall to 7-3 after the Steelers loss. And the Eagles, I was talking to Caesar about this earlier today. The Eagles, even when Washington's been really bad and the Eagles have been really good, they always kind of struggle with them, and they tend to split. Like, if you go back the last few years, I don't remember about last year, but I know the year they went to the Super Bowl, they split. I believe they split last year. And I remember talking about when Washington was like a dumpster fire organization that had some talented pieces, but like Taylor Heineke is your starting quarterback, or Sam Howell's your starting quarterback. And they always kind of, for whatever reason, gave the Eagles some issues. Now, new regime, new ownership, new coaching staff, new quarterbacks. So like they traded away Chase Young, they traded away Montez Sweat last year. So like it's a different team, but they're a much better team. They're 7-3, so you expect these two Eagles Commanders games coming up that they're going to be hotly contested. And this is a nice, good test for the Eagles. You come out here, you just took control, you're up by a half game in the division. You come out and you beat the Commanders, just beat them. But especially if you could beat the Commanders by 10 points, that's a nice signature win. It's showing everyone, like, okay, they might have been hot to start the year, but they're still little bro. We're still big bro. You're up a game and a half in the division, and at present time, after one game, after one win against the Commanders, you got the tiebreaker, and then you run it back, I think, in a couple weeks. I think they play twice in 3 weeks. Could be twice in 4 weeks. But those are going to be two big games on the Eagles' schedule to have an opportunity to show that, we're blowing teams out. We blew the Bengals out. People kind of look at the Bengals being better than they are because of who they have at quarterback and what Jamar Chase is doing. But it's an opportunity to show, like, all right, we can beat good teams. I don't think the Commanders are a contender this year, but it's for the Eagles. You beat the Commanders, it's a step toward building a better resume to feel a little more confident headed into the playoffs that we can compete against these teams. Cowboys, meanwhile, just they're done, just dead. And like, how bad does Trey Lance have to be that there's just like not even a consideration for starting this guy? So Cooper Rush, we've seen him be really good in relief. Went 13 for 23 for 45 yards. CeeDee Lamb had 6 catches on 10 targets for 21 yards. 6 catches for 21 yards. How is that even possible for CeeDee Lamb? Ugh. As Adam would say, Cowboys fans, they are in football hell for sure. Let's move to Sunday Night Football. This was an interesting game. It was a very entertaining game. Detroit came out just kind of getting their ass handed to them for the first half. Jared Goff ends up throwing 5 interceptions. 15 for 30. All those weeks, what was it, 6 weeks in a row? I think 6 or 7 weeks in a row, where in total had more touchdown passes than incompletions. And then here he has 15 incompletions, 15 for 30, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Just a rough game for Goff, which it's a regression to the mean, but a very sharp correction. Like, normally it would kind of correct itself over the rest of the season, or the rest of the season into next season, through next season. But this, in one game, it's like, all right, you've been that damn good for half the season. You're going to have the worst game of your career. And he did, and they still found a way to win. Now, Adam and I got into it. He was pissed. He went 13-1 in his picks. Big bounce back week for him. And he was pissed because he picked Houston, and he felt like the refs got involved in the end. And I told him, hey, the Lions were plus 350 to win the game at halftime. And you bet your ass I put a little money on that because I still, even in that moment, felt fully confident that the Lions were at the very least going to be in a position to win the game at the end of the game. And I felt pretty good that Lions probably going to win this game. And I also felt like emotional hedge. How much am I willing to lose to watch the Lions lose a game so the Vikings can get back up in a tie for first place? Even if Lions still probably going to win the division, even if they lost this game. But still, you put yourself in position. So he gave me the business that I could take my blood money. And I told him, I said, hey, don't be mad at me because I made the smart bet. And he tried to give me shit. It wasn't a smart bet. But let me ask you this. Did the bet cash? Yes, it did. Because the Detroit Lions came back, scored 6 points in the third quarter, 13 points. In the fourth quarter, that's 19 points unanswered. Houston could not put a point on the board in the second half of the game. Did not go their way. It was a tale of two halves. C.J. Stroud, the 2 interceptions. And, I mean, they just weren't effective running the ball. Joe Mixon averaged less than 2 yards a carry, 25 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. Granted, they stuck with the run, so I respect that. C.J. Stroud, not a terrible game. 19 for 33, the 232 passing. But, the 2 interceptions, only 1 touchdown. Lions ran the ball, 32 times to Jared Goff's 30 passes. That's a great balance. 19 carries for Jahmyr Gibbs, 71 yards. Only a 3.74 average, but again, they stuck with it. David Montgomery, 12 carries for 32 yards, only a 2.67 average touchdown, but again, they stuck with it. So, I mean, you look at the stat, like Jared Goff completed 50% of his passes through 5 interceptions. Between Gibbs, Montgomery, and 1 Jared Goff rush, they're averaging less than 3.5 yards a carry. And somehow you win the game. I can't explain it. They forced 2 turnovers to their 5 turnovers. But I don't know, man. Lions, again, the reason that to me they're the best team balling is because they've been blowing teams out. But then you get to a game like this and they display what I talked about with the Chiefs last week, where it comes down to, can you play the 4-dimensional chess? Can you see that you're in a game where you're not in control? Maybe it feels like the other team is in control. Maybe the other team is in control. Maybe the game is just wonky and wacky and it's out of hand and nobody's in control. But you're able to look ahead and see, all right, like Dan Campbell, if you watch the broadcast, they're showing the interview they did with him at halftime, and they air him like as the half is kicking off or the new quarter is kicking off, so it's not a live interview. And he comes out, we're not going to score however many points in one shot, in one big chunk. Like we gotta take it piece by piece, and the defense got to force a couple turnovers. And as they're airing the interview, the Lions pick off a pass, and then sure enough, they pick off another pass in the end zone on a late ball, a poorly thrown ball by C.J. Stroud on what should have been a touchdown. The guy was wide ass open. I don't know why it took Stroud so long to see, because he was like, nobody covered him. Like, you could have thrown that ball 2 seconds earlier and just lofted it up and put it in a spot, but just waited too long on it and threw another pick. But again, you listen to what Dan Campbell said in that halftime interview when they're down 23-7. We just got to take it chunk by chunk, piece by piece. We're not going to get it all at once. Got to force a couple turnovers. Sure enough, that's exactly what they do, and they come out with the win. Now, why was Houston beating them so bad in the first half? They talked about this on the broadcast. I watched a breakdown on YouTube about this. Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you focus your energy on we gotta just blanket Amon-Ra St. Brown. That and if you can get, I've been saying this for years now, if you get heat on Goff early, you can get him out of his rhythm. Now he was in such a good rhythm for so many games in a row that it's gotten to the point where you got to like constantly be on Goff. But they got Goff out of his rhythm early. They were blanketing Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is kind of his safety blanket. I mean, he's your most trusted receiver. He's got the best hands on the team. He's getting paid as much money as he is for a reason. He's a fantastic, even still probably fairly underrated receiver. I'm sure Lions fans would agree. You know, Justin Jefferson, obviously the best. Jamar Chase getting his due this year with the monster game he had last week, and just a monster season he's having. Feels like he's in the end zone every single week. You know, CD Lamb got a lot of love last year, and rightfully so. Tyreek Hill, like you got all these guys. And where, like, why isn't Amon-Ra St. Brown in that same conversation? Like, he's recognized, oh, he's a great receiver, but he's never really in that conversation when we're talking about the best receiver or the best receivers in football. And he should be, because he's fantastic. And when you throw everything you can throw from the secondary's perspective at Amon-Ra St. Brown to just not stop him, but just like make it so ridiculous that you want to force a ball in there that you got to go elsewhere, but you're also getting heat on Goff. I'm not going to say that's the blueprint to beat the Lions, because the Texans did it to perfection and they still lost, at least in the first half. But even still, like if teams take that as a blueprint and start applying it, like I think at this point we should have enough confidence in Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson that like if one other team does this to them and causes them problems, like they're going to adjust schematically to not be entirely reliant on Amon-Ra St. Brown when things aren't going right. Like again, he's always going to be Goff's favorite target. He's always going to be the guy that if Goff's in trouble and you got heat on him, that's where he wants to go with the ball, because you could trust Amon-Ra St. Brown as much as you could trust any receiver in the league in a situation like that where things are kind of breaking down. It's just like, I just need to get the ball toward him somewhere, and he's going to find a way to get his hands on the ball. He's going to find a way to get his feet on the ground inbounds. So like that, I mean, that's not going to change, but if you can make it so you're not schematically reliant on it as much, then I think that should be enough to swing the pendulum away from like, all we got to do is stop Amon-Ra St. Brown and get heat on Goff, and there's no way they're going to win. So maybe one other team might be able to pull off an upset using that, but I just think Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell are too smart that they're going to make adjustments based on how badly they got beaten. Again, some of these, like, you're not going to throw 5 interceptions every game. It's just, you know, like I said, it's an overcorrection in the regression to the mean, but they're going to learn from this for sure. Like, they're happy to get the win. You know, it shows the grit, shows there's multiple ways for them to win. The run game, they stuck with it, but it wasn't super effective. Goff was throwing picks all over the place. It really was just a gut it out, grit it out, tough win. Defense got shredded in the first half. Let's come back and just put the clamps on in the second half. We're going to get enough possessions to make up a 23-7 deficit. We're going to get enough possessions in the second half. Just defense, just plug away, put the clamps on, like I said, and we'll find a way to get it done. And they did. Texans, this looked like a good bounce back. Bad couple weeks for them. The offense just hasn't looked right in weeks. They're down Diggs. They're still down Nico Collins. Joe Mixon, like I said, averaging less than 2 yards a carry in this game. But the first half just went so well. And you felt like, all right, they heard the criticism. They felt it. And we're like, fuck this. I don't care if we're playing the best team in football. We're going to come out here and we're going to show them the Houston Texans are who most people thought they were coming into the season, which is a contender. And they looked like it in the first half. You know, they didn't just go toe-to-toe with my best team ball, and they were up 23-7 at halftime. And just completely blew it in the second half. And again, Detroit is Detroit, so like there's no shame in losing to Detroit. But again, the bad pass that gets intercepted in the end zone from C.J. Stroud, and like you can't put up any points. You were beaten like they made halftime adjustments that good that you go from a 23-7 game to getting beat 19-0 in the second half and losing the game. Like if you're going to be a contender, you can't have these types of games. I'm not saying that they're not capable, and if they get Nico Collins back, like sometimes games like this happen where it's just weird and just one half goes one way, one half goes the other way. It's football. It is what it is, but it just in a week where it's like, oh, the Texans have been trending downward a bit. They got some struggles on offense. Now they got to play the Lions. But then you come out and have the first half that you have. It just, if you just came out and lost 26-23 to the Lions in a hard fought game the whole time, I think you can come away feeling like, all right, yeah, we lost again, but we went toe to toe with a juggernaut. We went toe to toe with the best team balling. And I don't want to say it's not a moral victory. There are no moral victories, but like you don't. I don't think you feel as emotionally gutted by it as you do if you're up 23-7 at the half on the best team in football, in my estimation, and end up losing the game 26-23. Like I feel like it's an emotional blow. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from the Texans here moving forward. They got to have some winnable games on the schedule because they play in a very weak division that has two teams vying for the top pick. But let's see what they got coming up. They got at Dallas next week, so that obviously is a supremely winnable game. 3-6 Cowboys. Then you got the 2-7 Titans at home. Then you're at the 2-8 Jaguars. Then you got to bye. So they got a chance here to rip off 3 wins, get right, maybe get a little healthy in this stretch, rip off 3 wins, get the 9-4, and then it's like, we had a rough patch in the middle of the season, but we're 9-4 in total control. They're gonna win the division. Then you got your bye. Then you get the Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens. So, I mean, we'll see where the Dolphins are at. They get a big win on Monday night. We're going to get into that next. But, they got the talent. They got Tua. They got Tyreek. They got Jalen Waddle. Defense played nice with Zach Seiler coming back in. Underrated re-addition from injury coming back in. So, yeah, the Dolphins game might be a tough matchup. At the Chiefs, obviously going to be a tough game for Houston, but also a chance to prove yourself. Can we go into Arrowhead? Maybe the Chiefs are still undefeated and they're the first team that can go in there and beat them this year. But at Chiefs, at home against the Ravens, I think you got to, in the Ravens game on Netflix on a Wednesday night on Christmas. I forgot about that. So if you could win those next 3 games, get the 9-4, especially if you could beat the Dolphins, get the 10-4, you're probably locked up in the division at that point because who's catching you? Not the Titans, not the Jags. Maybe the Colts get back in the mix, but they have looked not great for the last month, pretty bad for the last month. So you can get to that Chiefs game, Ravens game, where you're not in a position where it's like, we need to win this game or we're fucked and we're not going to make the playoffs. But you can approach it as like, all right, we've proven we're a playoff team. We're 10-4. Even if they lose the Dolphins game and they're 9-5, but I think you want to win those 4 games, those next 4 games. Plus the Dolphins, you're coming out of a bye. Like you got 2 weeks to prep. You got a little time to get healthy, get Nico Collins back, and you can look at that Chiefs game, that Ravens game as like, all right, numbers wise, record wise, like we've proved we're in that upper echelon in the AFC because there is a pretty steep drop off from those top teams to everyone in the middle and certainly everyone at the bottom. But you can look at these as a test. Like last few weeks before the playoffs, we got a chance to go up against 2 top contenders in our conference, prove we belong, prove we can hang with these dudes, prove we can beat these dudes, build some confidence, be battle tested. Because in week 18, you got the Titans. So you can kind of, maybe you're locked up, maybe you're locked into your seating and you don't even got to play your guys if you don't want to. Or it's a chance like, all right, we got an easier game, a cupcake game to end the season. Yeah, it's a divisional opponent. Yes, it's on the road, but you get those two big tests out of the way. Then you get one like a tune-up game. Oh my God, I went from the Titans are going to win the division. They're going to win 10 games. They're going to upset everyone. They're going to win the division. I'm going to bet a ton of money on this to now calling them a tune-up game for the Houston Texans. But I think the schedule plays out pretty heavily in the Texans' favor after they lost 3 of their last 4. So again, start the season red hot, a little rough patch in the middle, but they're set up. They're set up here to get hot. Have a couple tests. Even if you can split Chiefs and Ravens, I think you got to feel pretty good about yourself. You lose both those games, I think you still got to approach it like keep it close, and then like, all right, we're gonna see them again in the playoffs. We got a little information on them. Feel like we might be able to pull this off. We feel like we can pull this off. But if you could split those games, I think you're feeling real good about yourself, especially because like you should rip off 3 or 4 wins in the next 4 games. So I mean, the Texans are still in a good spot to win. Like, they get to 9-4, 10-4, certainly 11 wins. I think you just looking at the schedule, like they should win 11 games. And if they win 12 games, then they beat someone who's a top contender, and you got to feel pretty good about their chances come playoff time. But I don't know, it's been a rough patch, but the schedule's out in front of them. Everything's out in front of them. They got a pretty well placed bye. They got this stretch of god awful teams that they're playing coming at the exact right time. So schedule makers with the foresight to help the Texans out. So if you're a Texans fan, I think you might be feeling a little like, how did we blow that game? Like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? Like, lost 3 of our last 4 after we started as good as we did. But things should settle in. Things should get better. Just take it a game at a time. You got a bunch of winnable games on the schedule, and you can get it done. Now, Monday Night Football, I was sort of in and out of this one. I talked to Adam earlier in the day, and he told me thinks the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. I said, Adam, what the fuck are you talking about? He said, look at the AFC, and I did. And for me, as someone who preseason, before the Tua injury and all that, I said the Dolphins are going to finish under 500. I thought 7 or 8 wins, and they're going to miss the playoffs. Now they're trending toward they could maybe still win 8 games. They're probably going to finish under 500, but they might make the playoffs. And it's going to bug me that I didn't hit on both of those. But it ain't my fault. It's the AFC's fault. Because the AFC right now, other than at the top, other than those teams at the top, extremely, extremely mid. So that ain't on me. That's on the AFC. But Dolphins go into LA. Whose house? Not the Rams' house. It's always whoever they're playing. It's always their house. Even if the Rams win, don't let them fool you. Rams just did not good. It was a sloppy game. Rams didn't look good. I feel like there was a lot of turnovers. Even Tua, 20 for 28, solid, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he lost a fumble. The Rams, Stafford, no touchdowns, threw an interception, fumbled twice, didn't lose any. Kyron Williams fumbled and lost it. So just kind of a sloppy. It was a Thursday night football game feel on a Monday night. Just not tight. The Rams, I mean, they only gave up 23 points. So like at no point were they really getting blown out to the point where they can't run the ball. But Kyron Williams only got 15 carries for 62 yards, 4.13 average. Blake Corum got a couple runs, and Matt Stafford had 1 scramble for 0 yards. And then Matt Stafford threw 46 times. Versus the Dolphins, Tua threw at 28. Achane, 12 carries for 37. Malik Washington had the 1 carry for 18 yards and the touchdown. Tyreek Hill 2 for 11, Jalen Wright 5 for 3. Tua had a scramble for -1, and Jalen Waddle had a run for -1. So both teams a little heavy on the pass, especially the Rams. I mean, if you take out the Matt Stafford scramble, they ran 17 times and they threw 46 times. 0 touchdowns, 293 yards. Puka had a great game, 9 grabs, 98 yards. Cooper Kupp, 7 grabs, 80 yards. But I, I don't care who your quarterback is. Like you don't want to be throwing 46 times to 17 runs. It's just not a recipe for success. And you only score 15 points at home. You're on a win streak. You got yourself back to 500. You got your receivers back. You feel like you're ascending. It's a very winnable division. Cardinals are looking good, but you win this game, you're 5-4. You're only a game or a half game back. You still got a game against the Cardinals. And they just come out and do this. I don't know. Sean McVay, in my mind, I haven't talked about it, but because I used to, I'd call him the whiz kid, wonder boy. Everyone had all these things, these superlatives for him, but I was always like, wait and see. Then he wins a Super Bowl. And it's like, all right, I'll give him his due. But like Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl, and like I wouldn't hire them now, thinking like, oh, they're gonna take our team to the Super Bowl, but McVay, the way he changed the run game last year, and like I started thinking more on it and thinking, you know what? Let me give McVay his due. Like I literally like 2 or 3 days ago, I was thinking about Sean McVay and was like, you know what? I need to put a little more respect on him as truly a maybe not top tier coach where Andy Reid is an active coach is sitting by himself right now, but I need to put a little more respect on Sean McVay's name, give him a little more love, and then he comes out and they throw it 46 times to 17 runs. So Rams, I don't know what to expect. I'm happy about it because of all the teams that are on the outside looking in that are still in the wild card race in the NFC. Rams are the only one that have beat the Vikings straight up. So they got that tiebreaker. So I was glad to see them lose because now we're 3 games up on the Rams. I guess technically 2 because of the tiebreaker. But I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Dolphins, again, a sloppy game, not a great game, but you get the win. The AFC in the middle and in the bottom sucks. So, you put yourself in a good position there to try and make a run here. Now, are they going to jump? They'll probably jump the Colts because the Colts just have not looked like they're it in any capacity. But are you going to jump the Bengals? Are you going to jump the Broncos? Like the Broncos, they had the one really bad game against the Ravens, but they were 5-3 headed into that, and then they should have beat the Chiefs. So they're 5-5 right now. But if you're them, it's like, all right, listen, we got our ass kicked by the Ravens, but we responded really well, and we damn near beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. The Broncos still got to feel pretty good about themselves. Their defense, other than the Ravens game, playing absolutely lights out football. Bo Nix has looked like a really nice young quarterback in the league. Obviously, he had 5 years as a starter, 4 years as a starter in college. He's adjusting. Sean Payton was like the one guy who was like, this is the perfect spot for him, the perfect system, and it's sort of come to fruition. So, they got to feel pretty decent about themselves moving forward at the very least. And then the Bengals, you got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase. So, I think Zach Taylor's a bozo, but I think we all still expect the Bengals to not just lay down and die, even if they keep losing some of these tough games. But the Dolphins, they're somehow they're in the mix. They're only a game out in the loss column, so the Dolphins can keep doing whatever the hell it is that they were kind of trying to do on Monday and successfully did, even if it looked really sloppy. Because you look at their schedule, they got the Raiders coming up next week. They got the Patriots after that. Now, can't sleep on the Patriots because that Patriots defense is starting to look like the Patriots defense that we expect the Patriots defense to look like. But either way, not a great team. It's at home. It's in Miami. The Patriots have historically struggled in Miami. See if that carries over to the new regime. But Raiders and Patriots. Then you got to play at Green Bay. Then you're at home against the Jets, at the Texans, home against the 49ers, at the Browns, at the Jets. So you got 2 Jets games. You got to at least split those. Can you beat the Browns? Can you beat the Pats? Can you beat the Raiders? That's 5 wins. It's going to put you at 8 wins. That might put you in the playoffs. And that's just writing off entirely the 49ers and the Texans games and assuming a split with the Jets. Because the Jets, again, back and forth, up and down. So one of those they'll be up, one of them they'll be down. And also writing off the Packers game in Green Bay late November on a Thursday night. But again, like the Dolphins, you got Tua, you got Tyreek, you got Jalen Waddle. So it's kind of the same as with the Bengals, where like, yeah, they're 4-6, but they got Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, they got T. Higgins. So like, you have some part of your team that should be really fucking good. And that's always going to give you a chance. That's why I picked the Giants against the Panthers, because they got the War Daddies up front. If you have a unit on your team that's capable of being dominant, you're going to have a chance to win games even against top contenders. I might not pick it, but again, they still got the Raiders, Patriots, 2 Jets games, and the Browns. So Dolphins, they got a shot, man. They got a shot to claw their way back in here and somehow get into the playoffs. So that's it for week 10 recap here on a Lemme Talk to You Tuesday. That's a solid week of football, gotta say. Solid week of football. I don't know. We'll see. I don't have anything scheduled right now for the rest of the week other than the pick show. Caesar and I are going to try and record tomorrow, so that'll be out probably Wednesday night, Thursday morning. We'll see if schedule's got to shift around. The man is a new father, so we got to work around the family schedule. Family is most important, then football. First family, then football. Unless it's a really big game and, the family situation, it's, they can handle it, right? Then football can come first. But he's got a new baby. He's got to handle his business. Try and get that recorded tomorrow, get that out for you. You never know. Might be an opportunity for a bonus episode to pop up in here. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Till next time, as always, take it easy, football heads.
Football heads?